I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. You're all dressed up with places to go. You scoot behind the wheel, turn the key, but no go. Now you're just all dressed up. What's to blame? Battery or starter? When I come back, I'll tell you.
O'Reilly. When your battery goes dead, everything comes to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts will help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
When cars won't start, it's always frustrating. What's the culprit, battery or starter? Here's how to tell. If it's night, turn on your headlights. If they don't come on, of course it's the battery. But if they do, leave them on and try to crank your car. If they dim or go out, the battery's to blame. During daylight, try the same test with your horn. If your lights and horn operate normally when you try to crank your car, guess what? It's the starter. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. Yesterday in Brakes 101, master cylinders, calipers, and pads were demystified. You learned they are a lot like hearts, muscles, and skin, all designed to stop cars and save lives. When I come back, it's Brakes 102.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything comes to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts will help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Welcome to Brakes 102 at Car Clinic College. Today's lesson, analog braking systems, or ABS. Ever press the brake and nothing? You just pumped and hoped for the best? Hope no more. The best is here. Computer-controlled ABS. This system monitors the speed of individual wheels and applies precise braking power to each. And if any brake starts to lock or slows at a different rate than the others, that specific brake is automatically pumped or pulsed to prevent lockup. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. Hi, I'm Bobby Likis with today's Car Clinic Minute. Remember your very first vehicle? It was red and had 4 wheels, and you were happy. But you've changed since that little red wagon. When I come back, I'll reveal the latest automotive wish list.
O'Reilly.
When your battery goes dead, everything comes to a stop. Don't take a chance on getting stranded. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and get your battery tested free of charge. If your battery does need replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts will help you find the exact Superstart battery that fits your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Remember, as teenagers, you were happy your cars had radios. But now, according to Exxon's driver-friendly poll, your tastes have all grown up. Topping your wish list is a built-in driver's seat back massage for de-stressing commutes. And some of you want to skip the drive-thru and ordered an in-car microwave. And finally, why wait till you get home to surf the net when a dashboard internet connection would be so handy? Wow, all that's missing in your automotive home away from home is the kitchen sink. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Count down to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And good morning, folks. Welcome to this this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Right along with me this hour, and we're going to I'll share with you some information from the Car Care Council, which is one of our partners, a nonprofit organization that is all things maintenance wise. And to that end, I don't know that I should be amazed, but I am. I signed on at carcare.org and put my VIN number for my Jag in there and gave a mileage per year. And it's within 200 miles. And I say I get a notice that it's time for service for the 65,000 mile service. And it's like within 250 miles, just amazing. The point is, it's a great reminder, even for me, and I'm in the business, and yet it's a great reminder from an outside source that, hey, it's time to service your automobile. And so is it time to service yours? And what is a service? When we come back from the break, I want to share with you. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by Berryman Products. If your vehicle is a little sluggish or experiencing poor fuel economy, try Berryman's B12 Chem Tool, featuring an exclusive HEST or high energy solvent technology. Berryman's B12 Chem Tool will help clean your fuel system, and it can result in higher compression, fewer repairs, and that's a good thing, and lower operating costs. You can learn more at berrymanproducts.com. Learn more about servicing your car when I come back at 888 Car Clinic. Like us, you'll love us. Entertainment systems, backup cameras, start-stop technology. Just a few of the electrical demands we put on today's cars. AGM or absorbent glass mat batteries are up to the challenge. They are precision engineered to offer the ultimate combination of power, durability, and reliability. One advantage, how acid is handled. Where it's free-flowing in a traditional flooded battery, acid is completely absorbed in the glass mat separators of the AGM battery. So in the event of a crash, AGM batteries won't leak. Learn more about AGM advantages at autobatteries.com. Spring has sprung, and summer's around the corner, which means road trips to the beach, the lake, grandma's house, and other favorite vacation spots. Make sure your family's memories aren't made sitting on the side of the road. Do a little preventive maintenance now to avoid trouble ahead. Visit carcare.org to find out how you can best keep your vehicles safe, dependable, and on the road longer. And while you're there, order a free copy of the Car Care Guide for your glove box. That's carcare.org. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for over 47. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and the Torch Award for Ethics. And I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Bay. Here's how. Go to pnj.com. Click on Best of the Bay, look for the professional category, then click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. 3 simple steps. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, scroll to Professional Category, click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Ricey Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake and the day is mine to take. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with today's program. 888 Car Clinic is the number for you to call. 888-227-2546. Hannah's back in the house. Last week she had the day off and took some. You were off for test. Let me see. Is that right, Hannah? Fabio, what'd she say? Oh, yes. Well, okay. Let us all hear the news. How did you do last week, Hannah, on your test? And what tests were they? Was it SAT test? Well, and she won't know until later. Like, when will that be? Like, what's later? How long you have to wait for your test? The 17th. Oh, cool. Okay. So before next week, she'll know. Oh. Hey, she may not show up next week. So, folks, you might need to call in today because, well, or she may be here lively, you know. So Fabio, just one last question, and my curiosity, ask her how she thinks she did.
She said, "Oh gosh."
Hannah, turn your mic up in there. Hannah, what do you think?
I think I'm okay-ish. I think I did okay.
Okay. Well, congratulations. I'm sure you'll do fine. You're smart. So she's smart. So 888 Car Clinic is her number, our number, my number. And it's easy for you to call, 888-227-2546. You know, one of the things that I share with you every week are, like, sometimes stories of what happened here in the service shop. And for those of you who are not familiar with Bobby Likis Car Clinic, this is our 28th year on air and 48th year in the automotive service business. And you want to talk to someone who has seen a lot of changes. The automotive industry is just absolutely amazing. In fact, I brought to the studio this morning a survey that was just conducted by AAA. And by the way, our service shop here in Pensacola, Florida, 48 years, is a certified AAA service shop. And what that means is that we're on the dial list. If somebody breaks down, then they get towed in by AAA. If they're within a certain distance, and I don't know what the rules are, except that if they're in our close proximity, they'll tow the car here. And if it makes it here, sometimes I think the tow truck drivers kind of take those cars to different shops, but they're not supposed to do that. But that has happened. I won't mention any names, but we have had that happen. So just as a reminder for those of you, here's the takeaway from that. As a reminder from those of you who are in an area and you want your car taken to a service shop by AAA, you can recommend to that service shop, or actually you can request, not recommend. It's not a recommendation, it's a request. I want my shop to go to ABC Garage or wherever you'd like to have it. And regardless of what the tow truck driver says, that's where that will go. Now, you obviously can't be 100 miles away from home and say, I want to go to my home garage. That's not the point. So just to let you know, but with regard to the question is, why aren't Americans plugging into electric vehicles? How cute is that? That's these writers of these articles, or you have to make a headline, you know. But here's something that's really, I think, interesting. And this is this week's release. AAA's latest survey reveals that despite many Americans having interest in electric vehicles, when they're asked if motor vehicles will be electric by 2029, only 4 in 10 said yes. Well, now think about how that question was asked. When asked if most vehicles will be electric by 2029, only 4 in 10 said yes. Well, I don't know that that's really a great question, Fabio, if most vehicles. I think the question should be, do you think there will be an increased number, significant number of electric vehicles on the highway by 2029? Would be a less leading question. So I don't agree with the way that question. And therein lies the real challenge with surveys. How you ask the question depends and will steer the answer. So you have to be curious about and question. Actually, you have to question everything. When you take your car into a service shop and somebody says it needs ABC, and then you question, well, show me, why does it need that? And then the other side of the coin is you have to be willing to understand and accept why your car needs. In other words, my car needs brake pads. Let me back up. Your car needs brake pads. Okay, yeah, well, that's been a long time. And it needs rotors. Well, can't you machine those rotors and use them over again? Yeah, we could have if you had come into the shop 5,000 miles before they went to metal on metal, before you heard this noise. And a lot of brake pads, folks, have noise sensors. A noise sensor is nothing more than a metal blade like a chalk on a chalkboard, beep, so that when you step on your brakes, or you're not stepping on the brakes, but you hear this squeal, a dedicated squeal, and the squeal gets worse when you step on the brakes, and sometimes it'll go away because of the way the pads are positioned, until the pads get so worn that metal squeal tab is metal to metal all the time. Then, in addition to that, buried in the depths of the brake pad lining, the material that wears, there's a wire, and it's a single wire, and it serves to ground the brake warning light, so that the wire's there the whole time for 20, 30, 40,000 miles. Then finally the pad wears down deep enough so that the wire's exposed, and that wire touches the brake rotor, and the brake rotor is metal, and you get a ground and the light comes on. When that happens, the sensors have to be replaced as well. And usually we'll put, I say we're celebrating 48 years, so we know and we've learned through schooling and through OJT the best practices. And the best practices is you put new rotors on, you put new pads on, if the rotors can't be machined, or if they're questionable. And you say, well, okay, that's another question. How do you know when the rotors can't be machined? Because by law, the rotor has a minimum thickness that's cast into that rotor. It's not stamped. It's not written on there in Japanese. It is literally stamped on the rotor or cast in the rotor, so that when we as technicians remove that rotor and it has a minimum thickness, let's say of 1 inch 100 thousandths, and it's 1 inch and 108 thousandths, and it's going to take 15 thousandths cut to make it, it won't work. And then some cars, Mercedes really, as I remember, started this procedure with air brakes years ago. Mercedes, and understand this, I'm getting ahead of myself, the coefficient of friction has everything to do with how much pressure it takes to stop your vehicle. And I'll give you an example. If you were to put cooking oil on your hand and put your hand on your top of your granite top, and then somebody stood on your hand barefoot, and you could just zip your hand right out because it's no big deal. And then there's no coefficient of friction, or at least there's a reduced, like friction. That's what it's all about, like oil in your engine. But if you put your hand on a concrete broom swept surface, which is rough, and I stepped on your hand, if you pull your hand out, you're going to leave some skin. So there's a fine line between how abrasive to make a brake pad material and how slick to make a brake pad material. And to that end, the more abrasive you can make the brake pad material, then obviously the more grab it has on the rotor, and therefore it takes less brake pedal to stop the car. Effort, pressure. So you ever drove a car and you touch the brakes, wow, they just bring you to a halt. I mean, it's almost throw you through the windshield. So, and that happened years ago. Same thing's true for years ago. Chrysler came out with what they called full-time power steering, which is no such thing, but there was a way to convey to the consumers that this had special power steering, and what that full-time power steering was a reduced effort to turn the steering wheel. And so people would get in the new Chrysler and say, wow, this car really steers a lot easier than my old car. Well, yeah, your old car's not designed that way. And the problem was that induced oversteer. So if you found yourself sliding sideways or having to dodge some child running out and chasing a ball, and you pull the steering wheel, that knee-jerk reaction, you lost control of the car because it oversteered. So there's a fine line between full-time power steering or ease of power steering, and really, and I'll explain this too when I come back. I think it's very interesting. There's no such thing as power steering. Forget everything that you know about steering. There's no such thing. There's only power assist steering, and I'll share that with you when I come back. It has a lot to do with Tesla and their hands-free car where you have to have your hand on the steering wheel. I'll tell you a little story about that I learned just yesterday from master technician Johnny Bars when I come back. 888 Car Clinic. Let's get hooked up here. As winter comes to an end and spring begins, the Car Care Council reminds you that April is National Car Care Month. There's no better time for a comprehensive check of various vehicle maintenance items. Here are a few things to consider. Keeping battery terminals free of dirt, grime, and oxidation will ensure a clean connection and a stronger charge. Clean and flush your cooling system and be sure to use new coolant. This will help rid your radiator of rust, dirt, and sludge and will help prevent overheating. Check tread depth on tires. Insert a penny head first into the lowest point of the tire tread. If you can see the top of Abe's head, you need new tires. Correct tire pressure is also important, as under or over-inflated tires wear unevenly. And proper wheel alignment may not seem vital, but misalignment can shorten tire life and pose safety issues. For more great tips, videos, and recommended service schedules, visit carcare.org. And while you're there, order a free copy of the Car Care Guide for your glove box. That's carcare.org. This car repair spotlight brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. This week, a 2013 Ford Taurus came in the shop with 104,000 miles on a leaking water pump. Okay, replace water pump, no problem, right? Wrong. Water pump replacement on a Ford 3.5 V6 includes removal of timing chains and all engine components located on the front of the engine. Better do this right the first time or you'll lose a day's work. While Tommy, our ASE certified technician, disassembled the engine, we called our local O'Reilly Auto Parts professional and ordered parts. We also borrowed a few special tools from O'Reilly Auto Parts that were needed to do the job. It's really terrific to have a great team of O'Reilly Auto Parts nearby to help us keep our customers' cars on the road. Water pump and new chains installed, owner happy, and we were too. Another great story about why our first call for parts is O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
The airlines like to have sales. Summer getaway sales, holiday sales, winter sales. Truth is, at any moment, some airline somewhere is on sale with low fares to great destinations. Travelocity knows exactly what's going on, who's on sale, to where, and when, at over 700 airlines worldwide. We even have this nifty feature that lets you look at a calendar so that you can see exactly the days the great fares are available. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere. AOL keyword, travel.
Hun, guess my temperature.
It's 2 a.m. Go to sleep.
Come on, one guess.
I'm 98.
Higher.
Higher, 99.
You're getting warmer. Wait, I'm getting warmer.
Cold symptoms keeping you from getting a good night's sleep? Get NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head, fever so you can sleep better to feel better medicine. Use as directed.
One more guess.
100?
Yes. Tell her what she's won, Bob.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your hosts, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We were just talking about AAA's survey and about Americans. And the question was that I sort of took exception to. AAA's latest survey reveals that despite many Americans having interest in electric vehicles, when asked if most vehicles will be electric by 2029, that's 10 years. If most vehicles, only 4 in 10 said yes. I wouldn't think that by 2029. Fabio, would you think that in 10 years most vehicles will be electric?
Not most.
Not most. No. So therein lies the caveat there. Yet in a separate, to move on, a separate study AAA conducted earlier this year found that more than half of Americans believe that in this same time frame, most cars will have the ability to drive themselves. Now, I would believe that, but let me share with you an interesting, and if you have questions about cars, EVs, or oil, it doesn't matter. Hannah will take your call at 888-227-2546. So Johnny Bars, my shop foreman and longtime associate here at Car Clinic Service, went to a school this week. And that school was about electronics, which included electric cars and electronics and what have you. The good news, not that I believe that we'll all see electronic, self-driving automobiles taking over the road. I don't believe that will be anytime soon. But those technological breakthroughs and devices on those cars will migrate and have already migrated into our newer cars. And so if we never saw most cars on the road as self-driving cars, not that that's what this survey said, but if that never happened, we are still the recipients of that great technology because of the not the start-stop technology, but because of the steering and the braking, automatic braking and lane changing and all those features that are sprinkling their way into new car lineups that do what? Make us better drivers, safer drivers. But let me share this with you because I found it most interesting, speaking of the word most. So there was a convention or an event where Teslas were involved, and there were several people that were on the way there. They stopped at this rest station where also there was a charging station. And so they had one Tesla, then hey, there's another one there. There are several of those. So these were truly self-driving Teslas, although there were people there. But you see, with Tesla, if you self-drive a car, you have to have your hand on the steering wheel. Occasionally, you can't just put it on self-drive and then do something else, because the steering wheel has to have input from the driver. And therein lies and folks, now here's high technology. Think about this, because what I'm going to share with you here just blew my mind, and yet it's so simple. It's typical of how you can get around technology. If you have to have your hand on the steering wheel, so what did one of the drivers or one of the Tesla folks do? He taped a water bottle onto the steering wheel. So, and Jonathan's walked out of the room, but I wish he could hear this because he would appreciate this. I'm going to wait till he gets back in the studio, the control room there, because Jonathan's a young guy who wants to learn, and this is really information. So Jonathan just walked back in. So Jonathan, I want you to hear this. So here's a group of Tesla cars. They stopped at a convention or stopped at a rest stop, and they're plugged in, some of them, and some of them are in there. But at Tesla, for self-driving, you have to have your hand on the steering wheel, occasionally input from the driver in order for the self-driver to work. Otherwise, it pulls over and stops. It will not continue without input from the driver. So one of the owners of the Tesla cars taped a water bottle to the steering wheel. Well, obviously the water bottle is moving all the time because of the movement, right? So the car thinks their driver's holding on to the steering wheel. And the fellow says, well, yeah, let me just go and do my own work. I can do whatever I want to do. Just don't worry about the car because it thinks I'm hooked up there. Now, that is a simple way. When you think about it, I got thinking about that. Yeah, the water moves around in the bottle, so for all intents and purposes, all it takes is a little jostle here and there on the steering wheel for the steering wheel to think that there's a driver that's connected to it. So that's what happened there. Here's some more information about this. Although most Americans don't believe electric vehicles will be on the road in mass in the next 10 years, and I agree, AAA did find that 40 million Americans said they would be likely to consider an electric vehicle for their next car purchase, with millennials leading the pack. So concern for the environment and lower long-term costs remain the leading reasons to go green, 74% and 56% respectively. Previous objections to buying electric with regards to price and range anxiety continue to ease and have trended downward significantly. Well, I agree. So the range anxiety, I mean, we continue to hear about, 250, 300-mile range. And to that end, let me share with you a personal experience. I looked for a new smart car to buy my wife. She had driven the 2008 Smart for 10 years. I considered a new one, an EV, until the cost was $28,000 and the range was 58 miles. So I've said this before and I want to say it again. What's up, Mercedes? Are you absolutely trying to force Americans to shun EV cars? It's worked because now, and you probably all know this by now, but now for 2020, there will be no more smart cars because Mercedes has stopped importing smart cars because America's not buying them. Well, yeah, for 10 years, the transmission in a smart car was a funky, the engine stopped while the transmission shifted its mechanical gear, pushing the clutch in, shifting the gear, letting the clutch out, and then the engine goes again, and you never even let off the gas. I mean, that's just the way it did. And it took as long to shift as I just said, for every shift. So if you were not aggressive and patient, you would say, what's wrong with this car? It just lets off, then it goes, and lets off, then it goes. And that was the only negative thing that I would say about those cars, except they did blow around a bit on the road. Well, the new one in 2016 had a turbocharged engine and similar to a Formula One transmission, a dual clutch transmission. A dual clutch transmission, folks, is a standard transmission, two standard transmissions in one with two clutches, all in one compact unit. And the first clutch controls 1, 3, and 5 gears. And the second clutch controls 2, 4, and 6 gears. So while the car is accelerating in first gear, it's already in second gear. And the only thing that has to happen to get into second gear is the number 1 clutch lets go and the number 2 clutch connects. Bam, 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 bam. That's it. That's how fast, just like a Formula One car. It's amazing. So to that end, and we bought one, but it was a 16. And only in 16 and 17 were these cars available like this. Turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, 80 horsepower, so it's 30% increase in horsepower. Fantastic automobile. I mean, I wish that you could just drive and see and feel the newly designed Smart that didn't work. It worked, but not enough people knew it, so people didn't buy the Smarts, and the sales got worse and worse. And then Mercedes in 15 said, well, let's also come out with an EV with a 58-mile range. Well, duh. Even if you're a city dweller, 58 miles is still give you that range anxiety. So, and I'm going to come to Brian. I see Brian's from New York on the phone. Brian, we're coming to you in a minute. But here's the bottom line. Fast forward from 16 to 17 to 18, and Mercedes says, and they make smart cars, Mercedes says, okay, we'll make all EVs. What do? They took the 2015 58-mile range EV and plugged it into the new car. I mean, so why would anyone buy and pay $28,000 for a smart car that has a 2018 or 19 smart car that has a 2015 powertrain in it? You just absolutely, it would have to be some seriously passionate reason why you would do that. So to that end, I found two smart cars with ICE, internal combustion engine, and the turbo and the Formula One type transmission, dual clutch in the United States, and finally bought one, not finally, but bought one in Boston. And then ever since the car has been in our possession, which is like 6 weeks now, I have customized it and added, Sirius radio, and I've added carbon fiber sill plates and little specialty things that make this a super car. And it's cool silver and deep black is the color with a tritium cell. A tritium cell on a smart car is a NASCAR roll cage. Those cars are safe. If you don't think so, you don't know about it. But anyway, the bottom line, so Mercedes has finally made the decision to quit selling these cars because they made so many poor decisions to try to sell these cars. And I, for one, do not understand that because it's not good marketing, and it's ill-conceived decisions. And I would love to have a Mercedes CEO or exec or engineer on the air with me to explain why and how they used old technology on a car that didn't work in 2015. How do I know that? Just go look up on any Car Gurus or Cars.com or Auto Trader or any of those sites and plug in 2015 smart car for sale. Plug in a standard smart car for sale and plug in an EV, and an EV will be a 40% cheaper price because they bombed, because nobody wanted them. Let's take a call from New York. Brian, thanks for holding. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi, sir.
You probably heard about Toyotas and their catalytic converters failing.
I heard something about it. I didn't go there, so we got a heartbreak coming up, but refresh my memory.
Okay, there's several methods to try and unclog it if it's clogged, and that's with lacquer thinner. That's the primary solution. You put a gallon of lacquer thinner in the gas tank and 10 gallons of gas and drive it for 100 miles, and it's supposed to run that solvent through it and clean it up. And I was wondering if you had...
No, I did not hear that, and let me ask a question. See, lacquer thinner is a solvent, no doubt. Well, there's the dreaded break. Brian, stay right there because I'm really interested to hear this, and I have some input about using the wrong chemicals in a gas tank where the fuel pump is. So we'll be right back. Don't go away. We recently sat down with Johnson Controls Global Brand Manager Joe Meyer to discuss the advantages of AGM batteries. Joe talked about the many different factors that can affect battery performance. Also touched on what differentiates Johnson Controls AGM batteries from other manufacturers. Let's hear from Joe.
There are a variety of factors that influence the performance of a battery, including your driving style, driving environment, and distance, as well as climate. Basic habits that we may not think about actually have a substantial impact on your battery. So, for example, making frequent stops while running errands, driving in rush hour traffic, additionally driving on rough roads, or even driving aggressively with fast accelerations and hard braking, those all put wear on your battery. With its compressed cell design and glass mat separators, our AGM battery is precision engineered with a more robust design to excel in these conditions.
AGM batteries help meet the electrical demands put on today's vehicles, and Johnson Controls is the world's largest producer of automotive AGM batteries. Learn more at autobatteries.com. That's autobatteries.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
Good morning, Car Clinic in Pensacola. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for over 47. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and the Torch Award for Ethics. And I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Bay. Here's how. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, look for the professional category, then click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. 3 simple steps. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, scroll to Professional Category, click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Hope you're having a great day and ride along with me. And Hannah will take your call at 888-227-2546. We're talking with Brian in New York with regard to stories that he's, I guess, heard or read online with regard to adding lacquer thinner to. So Brian, tell that story again, and then I'll make my comments and we'll have our conversation.
Well, okay. On the internet, there's probably a dozen comments. Probably 90% of them are positive, good. They claim instant results or temporary pause between doing the procedure and success. And I can see where it would fail if it were plugged, the catalytic converter were plugged. However, I guess when it's just clogged with debris, the solution being a solvent, petroleum-based solvent, will clean out the converter, and it'll go on forever, or at least a couple more years.
Well, I have a challenge with that. Number one, lacquer thinner is a solvent, and
Right.
if you'll remember, or you may not know about this, but years ago, I mean, gosh, it's been 10 years ago at least, maybe longer, acetone, adding acetone was the rage, all the rage. You could read it online. And I will say this, of the people that made the comment online, none of those are professionals. None of those are ASE certified technicians or in classes or understands. I would ask each one of those people that printed that or put it online, what kind of precious metal is inside a catalytic converter, and what kind of insulation is used on a fuel pump. That's the real question to start with, because the windings, and see, electric fuel pump motors run inside, submerged in the gas tank. That's how they're cooled. Right. So if you put a solvent in there that will, and of course, as you know, lacquer thinner will dissolve plastics. And there are plastic, in fact, every canister, I'll call it a canister, but every module, electronic fuel module, fuel pump module, and a module is looks like a coffee can. It's about that size. It has all the wires, all the check valves, all the filter that's in the pre-filter, which is in the bottom of the module where it picks up fuel from the tank, the bottom of the tank. So that module has plastic, made of plastic. Lacquer thinner and plastic, you know what happens there. So even the fuels and aromatics in fuels cause problems with the plastic fuel modules already. And I'll give an example. We've seen a lot of and had a lot of fuel pump failures that were cracked modules. We've had a lot of evap problems because the connectors at the plastic where the hose of the fuel, either the supply or the vent or both, was plugged onto the top of the little module that is on the outside of the fuel, but of course it has that vapors on the inside, and they crack and they leak, and then the car knows there's a leak back there, like you leave the gas cap loose, and the check engine light comes on, and it gives you an evap code, and so we see this constantly. This is a huge, I say huge. We have had and still continue to have numerous customers that come in with check engine lights caused by faulty hoses, connections, and fuel tank modules, and also evap canister, which also has that's where these hoses interconnect. Now, having said that, there are chemicals that you can buy on the aftermarket that are produced and formulated to clean carbon out of either the direct combustion injection or the port injection. But there are no chemicals that are designed to clean out catalytic converters by any manufacturer in the automotive aftermarket. If there were, if that was a safe way to do that, you would have all of the CRCs and the Gold Eagles and all those companies, the Bars Leaks, those companies. In fact, those three companies that I just named came out with ethanol treatment, which is ludicrous. And I told this to all three of those companies' engineers. I've had a 30-minute conversation with 3-on-1 with three of the people. In fact, this was a Bars Leaks, and I know the owners of this company, the product, but they saw an opportunity to make a product that they could sell to consumers and say, oh, ethanol is going to hurt your car. Really? Not. So the real problem that we have in automotive industry is everybody's an expert until you have a serious problem, and then nobody knows how to fix an automobile, and that's why you go to a shop and pay the price that you do. So acetone is a solvent. It's and it's a mildly toxic. Catalytic converters are suppressed. I'm sorry, I can't read this, but Jonathan just came in and brought me this. So anyway, Jonathan, step in here just a minute. Hold on, because Brian, I want to get this right, because when you read something online that hits my hot button, this is
remove toxins, so why add acetone, which is that's not how you spell supposed. I was right.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're saying, Jonathan, that from a chemical standpoint, solvent, which is and what's this other word here? What's that?
Cumene process.
It's a cumene process. So that process is a mildly toxic catalytic converter. It's supposed to remove exhaust toxins. But acetone is a toxin.
So why add more into the exhaust?
Add more into it. Well, correct. And what about lacquer thinner? It's acetone and toluene and methanol. Methanol.
Methanol. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. That's great. So, Brian, I asked Jonathan to check for the chemical composition of lacquer thinner and acetone.
Right.
Lacquer thinner is, and here are the toluene, methanol, not ethanol, but methanol, and acetone. So lacquer thinner has acetone in it, and that's why I mentioned acetone earlier, because I thought I didn't make the connection there. I just knew that people used to say, oh, I'll put acetone in my car and what have you. Well, number one, if you spill lacquer thinner or acetone on the paint of your car trying to save a catalytic converter, now you're going to have to paint the side of the car because it will etch the paint. Likewise, if you put acetone or lacquer thinner in a gas tank, it will damage the wiring installation on the fuel pump and or the hoses inside the tank. That is the most ludicrous thing that I've ever seen. And so I'm absolutely 100% against adding lacquer thinner or acetone to the gas tank of an automobile. And I would challenge anybody. Now, in the first place, why would, and think about this, Brian, how does this get to the catalytic converter? Whatever you put in the gas tank has to go through the fuel system and through the combustion process before it ever comes out as exhaust. So, so if you were going to clean up a catalytic converter, you wouldn't put it in the gas tank. You would add it to the mouth of the intake of the engine during just like we do we fog what's called injection service and a fuel rail service, where we take a chemical that's designed and formulated to melt and dissolve carbon, and it's not toluene or lacquer thinner or acetone, and it is made by all the chemical companies. All these chemical companies make this and offer it because there's a need for it. But the bottom line is, if you were going to clean out the exhaust, you would put something in the mouth of the engine. You wouldn't add it to the fuel tank because it would be so diluted that by the time it got there, it would just be exhaust and mixed in the exhaust anyway. So I disagree. Now, think about this. Let's say, and you mentioned specifically that these folks had a catalytic converter that was stopped up. That's what this was for, right?
Well, they thought it, it wasn't effective.
Right.
Wasn't working.
It wasn't working, right. See, and therein lies, that shoots the whole theory down. Because if a catalytic converter is restricted in flow, whatever you put into the front of it to dissolve whatever is there will cause it to more restrict, because it will dissolve what's in the front of the converter, which will go back and melt into and meld with whatever is in the back of the converter and cause even more clogging. It's even, in the real world, that's the fact. And then let's shift gears here. What if the converter just had excessive carbon buildup, and through age or through an overly rich condition? Then you possibly could use a fuel system cleaner that is made to dissolve carbon. So you could possibly do that. But I will tell you this: I'm as against adding lacquer thinner to a gas tank as I was about acetone. And years ago, I was even more adamant. And there was a YouTube acetone no, I think is the name of it. But you Google Bobby Likis and acetone, and you'll get a lot of information there. I won't bore those who have something else on their mind besides this. But anyway, I can tell you, and I can share this with you, I don't care who writes this on the internet, they are wrong, they don't know what they're talking about, and they have nothing and no connection to the automotive industry. And adding any kind of chemical to the gas tank will ultimately clean, if it's a cleaner, will ultimately clean the tops of the pistons, and if it's a port injection, the intake valve and what have you. But also there's damage that can be done if the wrong chemical is used. You can take a laxative and it will cause effects in your body, but you can also take the wrong chemical, which would cause the same thing and put you in the hospital. So it's an application sensitive here. And I would just say that for the real skinny, besides calling Bobby Likis, just check with SAE, the Society of Automotive Engineers, and look for white papers on lacquer thinner, acetone, gasoline, and etc. There are thousands of papers out there that you can find. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was going with the majority of people that tried it, and the majority of them found success. The cost is the prohibitive thing. New York and California have carbon rules that somebody is scalping us. $1,300 for converter replacement is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But here's and depends on the car now. But here's the bottom line: there are aftermarket exhaust companies. In fact, in my city, there's one company called Muffler Masters. John Armentrout, who is a community participant in charity events. I see him socially out and about, and whenever I have an exhaust system or if we need a special stud, he's always there to help. And he's maybe 5 or 6 miles from our location, but he runs a really great business, and that's all he does is exhaust systems. And whenever we have a customer that needs a catalytic converter that is pricey or is dedicated only to the dealer, because and I'll give an example. Lexus has an exhaust pipe hooked to the engine, and then it has a flex, like a Chinese puzzle, a stainless steel jacket that's a flexible pipe that connects it to the catalytic converter. That little stainless steel jacket, because it has the weaves of the stainless steel, one of those little weaves will, through flexing over the time, will leak. And the converter costs a lot of money, because the converter includes that flexible connector. So we'll actually take that unit off, and John will repair the flexible part using his welding process, especially for that whatever that weave is made of. I think it's stainless steel type of material. And we saved a lot of people a lot of money without replacing the converter. That's number one. Is that legal? Yes, it's legal. And the reason that the problem was there is because the air would get into the exhaust, and it would show the catalytic converter is either not working or the O2 sensor defective, and it wasn't the O2 sensor of the cat, it was a vacuum leak and or exhaust leak into the catalytic converter. Having said that, John also, and this is not only local but nationwide, muffler shops sell catalytic converters, but every cat that they sell has to be government approved. And so even though the converter may look different from the one that's on the car, it is an aftermarket government approved catalytic converter that sometimes will save you 60% of the cost of a catalytic converter. But there ain't no easy fix. There's no free lunch. And whatever you add to the gas tank of an automobile, even if it did make the light go out, that's a temporary, and there's long-time problems that will come up because of that.
Even though it's diluted by 10 gallons of fuel.
Well, if you put how much cake coloring does it take to color a mixture? You put 2 or 3 drops of that into a batch.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, and how much fuel system cleaner do manufacturers, do gas companies put into their, like Shell says, Shell advertises they use 5 times the amount of cleaner mandated by the government in gas for Tier 1 gasoline. Well, if they use 5 times the cleaner, and they advertise that, you can't tell me that stuff is really expensive in that because it's that condensed. Anyway, it's really interesting, and I'm big on white papers, and I'm short on time because we're at the end of this first hour. We have other calls coming in. I would just recommend and everyone come back. I have some more information about cooling systems in the next hour of Bobby. And Brian, thank you so much for sharing with us, Bobby. Appreciate it. I'm Bobby Likis, folks. I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Today's Repair Spotlight is for gasoline-powered engines with 60,000 plus miles. At this age and high mileage, vehicles can develop irritating small oil leaks that can make a mess and ultimately cause serious damage to engine and chassis components. The solution? Berryman's B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator. It's simple to use and safe for engine components like catalytic converters and oxygen sensors. Berryman B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator cleans and protects the crankcase and engine oil system on all gas-powered vehicles and conditions and revitalizes seals and gaskets to help stop oil leaks. Berryman B60 High Mileage Oil System Rejuvenator contains zinc-based ZDDP and molybdenum moly to help fight friction, heat, and wear. It helps prevent sludge formation to maximize engine performance and life. Don't put up with those pesky oil leaks. Add some Berryman B60 to your motor oil and add another level of protection for your engine. Learn more about Berryman B60 and other great products at berrymanproducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's vehicle protection program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Count down to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And I want to welcome you to this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. We've had a 1 hour already today. Every Saturday from 10 till noon, 2 hours, Eastern Time. I come to you from the center of the automotive universe. A very interesting first hour. A gentleman called in, Brian from New York, and read online where a dozen people, let's say, or he didn't say exactly how many, but were claiming they used acetone or another solvent, lacquer thinner, which has acetone in it, to put in their gas tank to fix a catalytic converter. Because in New York, you know, and in a lot of states where you have emissions testing, the cars have to be repaired. That's not true for the state of Florida, thanks to our governor, and not our current governor, but the rules there. So no matter what kind of car you drive or what shape it's in, it's okay to drive it on the roads in Florida. You know, that's just true. But I won't go there. I already have. Anyway, I'll take your calls, 888-227-2546. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you in part by K-Seal, the one-step permanent multi-purpose system for coolant leak repair, including, folks, head gaskets, engine blocks, water pumps, and radiators. You can learn more at kseal.com, and you can learn a lot more by calling 888-227-2546, and I'll take your questions when I come back. Time for another edition of Cooling System Q&A, brought to you by Motorrad, your first choice for vehicle thermostats and caps. Why is the thermostat so important? Cooling system regulates engine temperature and helps prevent overheating. While it's comprised of several components, the thermostat plays a critical role with efficient cooling system operation. It must regulate coolant flow properly to maintain a specific engine operating temperature, in addition to providing quick warm-up. Motorrad's new stainless steel thermal element Ultrastat is unmatched for corrosion resistance. Its revolutionary Reax wax mixture provides quicker reaction time. The Ultrastat also features bilinear valve technology, which prevents thermal shock to cooling system components, gradually increasing coolant flow versus instant maximum flow found in traditional thermostats. The Ultrastat precisely controls engine temperature to ensure the lowest emission standards, maximum fuel efficiency, and terrific interior cabin comfort. The Motorrad Ultrastat line is the perfect thermostat upgrade option with coverage for over 160 million vehicles on the road today. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service. We recently had an 09 Honda Pilot come into the shop with 169,000 miles on the odometer. The vehicle owner said the cabin was starting to smell like coolant, and he was concerned. Upon closer inspection, we found a heater core leak. Choices were to keep the vehicle and make a repair, which at best is half a day's labor plus parts, or sell the vehicle and buy a different used car that could have its own set of problems. We presented a third option, K-Seal. You've heard me talk about K-Seal before. Well, I don't just talk about it, we actually use the product in our service shop. It's a pour-in solution designed to stop leaks and help prevent future leaks. Other sealers use sodium silicate, which has a tendency to clog the system. K-Seal features ceramic technology that's designed to repair the leak without clogging. Our customer went with K-Seal, and 1 month later, no more leak. Learn more about K-Seal at kseal.com. Don't just seal it, K-Seal it.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at lendingtree.com.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with this hour of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. 888-227-2546. Let's go to Jeff. Let's go to Jeff in Texas. And folks, now's a good time to get in. Please don't wait till the end of this hour and cram the calls full. 888-227-2546 is the number. Jeff, good morning. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Good morning, Bobby. How are you? And good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
I've been talking to my buddy, Steve Beck, who has visited you there near Pensacola, I believe, got a tour of your shop. And I told him about a problem I have. I'm a car guy, got quite a few cars, got 6 of them, but I actually drive my cars. And 2 of them are BMWs. I love them. They drive very, very well. They, as you know, they have only direct injection. They have no port injection at all.
Right.
And so far I haven't had any problem with them. But I've been told that at 100,000 miles, you can expect on average to do a head pull and a valve rework. And, that's a little bit not something that anybody or everybody would want to do. I just wonder, I've seen some products that have an EGR filtering technique that try to pull some of the stuff out of the oil vapors to prevent some of the deposits on the valves. But since there is no direct gasoline contact with the valve, the cleansers in the gasoline cannot do their job as well. And anyway, I assume the information I've been told, Bobby, is correct, that there is nothing but an engine head pull, and rework, that you can really do and can expect that around 100,000 plus or minus. And I'm kind of prepared for that. But my question to you, is there a reasonable alternative? And that's it.
Well, Jeff, you may have read, you may not have as much to worry about as you think, because it's not a head pull that is required. Rework, you don't need to rework the valves or anything. It's not a question of wear or damage to parts. It's a question of the carbon coking and building up on the intake valves and inside the intake manifold. And your BMWs have, variable intake manifolds with tunnels that open and close, make each port longer or shorter, which increases the torque. The longer the port, the more torque, low-end torque. But the problem with that is that you need a shorter pipe for the high end. So BMW and Mercedes and almost all cars these days use variable valve timing and variable intake manifolds. And there are, like Mercedes has a motor that's attached to the backside of an intake manifold with levers, and they crack and they break, by the way, that changes the vanes inside the intake manifold. But the problem, and you're right with regard to the direct injection not having any fuel flow around the valves, but it's really not the EGR that causes the problem. That adds to the problem. The main cause is the positive crankcase ventilation, because the vapors, the oil vapors from the bottom of the engine, the bowels of the engine as I call it, are drawn into the intake, and they flow across the intake valve and the intake manifold and the plenum and all the passageways, because it's a truly a smog vapor. And so you say, well, what's the difference in the smog and well, those sorts of things. Cleaners, and here's something that you have to know. Cleaners that are liquid cleaners end up as droplets onto the floor because they're heavy. They end up on the floor of the intake manifold, So even if you have, and we do this service, we provide this intake manifold cleaning and induction system service and fuel rail system service. But in the big scheme of things, unless those systems are performed regularly, they don't work. Or when they do work, if they're not really timely and take you a lot of time to perform, they cause problems, and let me explain why. If you could imagine a London murder mystery, and you got the London fog, and it's thick. You can't even see your hand in front of you. If you could create that fog within the intake manifold of your BMW and let it just kind of hang out in there for an hour, 30 minutes at least, and that fog, of course, is a chemical-induced fog, then that fog would cover all of the walls and the upper plenum chamber and every square inch of the tubing and the liners and the ports and the valves would have this fog of chemical, and this fog would then dissolve the carbon that's built up. Here's the challenge. You have people involved, and people induce this chemical, and they're sitting there in their stalls. This is technicians now, master technicians, that know this, but they don't really understand it. I really believe that they don't really understand it. And the irony of this is that, as fate would have it, I'm so glad you called in today. Here's a Motor Age magazine that I read this week, and I put initials down for myself, Johnny, Tommy, Austin, and Kelvin. And each one of my technicians had to read page 22, this article about your very same chemical, and it's in the Motor Age. And then they had to return this book to me, and I'm holding it in my hand. I just got it back returned from my crew yesterday, and the article was written by a gentleman, and the bottom line is, what you guys are doing in the stalls is not working. And the reason it's not working is because, fast forward to your conversation, because people don't come in at 15,000 and 30,000 and 45,000 every 15,000 miles and have something performed on their intake system because the car runs okay. Only when the car starts to run poorly. So to fast forward to where you're going, the intake manifold can be removed and will be removed and cleaned. Then each intake port, you turn the motor over until the valves are closed, and then you use a direct chemical and a stainless steel wire toothbrush. And you sit there and meticulously clean out each port and the back of the intake valve, and you use a little suction device. Now, Jeff, in doing so, some of that chemical is going to go past the valve seat.
Oh, yeah.
And where's it going to go? Directly into the cylinder. Now, if you're careful, if the person doing this job is careful and sprays, make sure that the valve is closed, obviously, and then sprays some chemical in there, and then quickly takes a steel brush and really brushes like a dentist would do, and then there's walnut shells. You've heard of ground up walnut shells.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we did that 30 years ago. There was an epidemic of carbon on the back of a Datsun 280 6-cylinder intake valves, and the car wouldn't run. It wouldn't accelerate. It was pathetic. Also, BMW came out with the walnut shells where you pull the intake manifold off, you hook an adapter to the intake port, you close the valves, and you blast the port and the back of the valve with walnut shells, and that cleans it out like new, literally like new. And walnut shells are so, the molecules are so big that none of that goes into the chamber. And so, So walnut shell blasting is truly the way to do it, but the way to clean out the intake valve and the intake port. But in order to do that, you'd have to have an adapter for every car. Where you could, I only want, you got an 8-cylinder, so you got 8 people with their mouth open. So you got to do one at a time. Well, I can do you at a time. You can do me one at a time. Yeah, the dentist, say ah. But in a car, you got, not only do you have 8 ports open, or 6, or whatever you've got in number of cylinders, you got the lungs of the engine, the intake manifold off. So on a lot of engines, that's the valley cover. So you got the crankcase open to the atmosphere, which means some debris is going to get in there. So to answer your question, and it's a great question too, because GDI, gasoline direct injection, and GTDI, gasoline turbo direct injection, those engines are building carbon as we speak. But you can add chemicals, and you can fog that system, but you would want to get the engine absolutely up to 200 degrees, and this is the way to do it. You want to get up to 200 degrees. You'd want to use a commercial nozzle that creates the fog, and you better make sure that the nozzle is in good shape. In fact, Tommy just came in yesterday, ASE certified tech. He said, Bobby, I got to get a new nozzle. Why? He said, well, my induction nozzle is coming out as a stream instead of fogging. And I said, well, clean it out, which is kind of a joke because it's the nozzle with the cleanser in it. It's just old. Anyway, got a hard break. So, Jeff, I want to leave you on the phone in case you have any questions. And, folks, now's a good time for you to get in. This is a great question. Carbon in an engine. 888 Car Clinic. Why CarStar? Today's vehicles offer comforts and conveniences never imagined 20 years ago. Backup cameras, entertainment systems, start-stop technology, the list goes on. These technologies help avoid accidents. But what happens after a crash? Growth in electronic vehicle content adds to the collision repair cost and complexity. Damage a side view mirror or paint a bumper, and you may change the trajectory of that sensor. Adaptive headlights are another example. They actually turn the corner with you as you're turning the corner. The price for these headlights can reach $2,000. Now, more than ever, it's important to follow automaker guidelines for vehicle repairs. Don't compromise vehicle safety. CarStar is North America's largest multi-shop operator of independently owned repair facilities. CarStar delivers consistently high-quality repairs and the industry's highest customer satisfaction ratings. At CarStar, they don't just repair cars, they repair your car. Learn more at carstar.com. Folks, recently a 99 Chevrolet Blazer came into the shop. The owner was having problems with hesitation upon acceleration. He'd already changed out several parts: spark plugs, wires, ignition coil, mass airflow sensor, fuel filter, and the air filter element. He even changed the thermostat and coolant temperature sensor. Still had the same problem after putting a lot of money in this car, and he was frustrated. We dug a little deeper, cleaned the throttle body, and checked for trouble codes. No codes. So we recommended Berryman B12 Chem Tool. Carbon deposits and dirty fuel injector nozzles are a common problem with drivability in late model engines. We also recommended a higher quality gasoline. The customer noticed improvement on the first day, and only a few days and a few hundred miles later, the problem was completely gone. Berryman B12 Chem Tool features HEST, Berryman's exclusive high-energy solvent technology. The result is a more complete combination of available chemical technologies. Drive to BerrymanProducts.com for more information. That's BerrymanProducts.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip
from Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
When you purchase the latest TV, tablet, or smartphone, don't forget to do the right thing with your old ones. Recycle them. The Consumer Technology Association and its members are making recycling your old devices as easy as buying new ones. Just go to greenergadgets.org, type in your zip code, and you'll instantly find the recycling location closest to your home. You'll also find recycling tips, like asking the store where you buy your new TV if they'll haul away your old one. Don't let your old tech tools clog your local landfill. Just visit greenergadgets.org.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Your calls at 888-227-2546. We're talking with Jeff in Texas with regard to carbon buildup and what have you. So Jeff, the bottom line, every 15 to 20,000 miles, you should service the vehicle. And when I say service it, you can add a chemical while the engine is idling. You can fog the intake manifold with a cleaning chemical. The challenge with that is when you fog something, just like when our shop, when it's really humid here in Florida, those really humid days where it doesn't rain, our floor sweats. Have you seen concrete do that, right?
Yeah.
So if we were to fog the whole building or the intake manifold, which is the size of your lungs, ultimately the floor of the plenum, the droplets in the fog would collect and it would end up as liquid on the bottom of the floor. What happens then is that concentrated liquid has to flow because it builds up and it seeks the downhill. So it flows into one cylinder or five or whatever, whichever is the easiest path, and it creates and makes a path of a valley, just like the Grand Canyon. So that even more so affects the flow of air through the system. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It really, I mean, it really is a. And I've up until this week, I had not read an article written by someone that knows what he's talking about and has been there, as I did this article, and this gentleman's name, and I just happen to have. I'm glad you called today. His name is Bernie Thompson.
I have a feeling I'm not the only person wondering about this one.
Oh, no, you're not. Bernie Thompson. Bernie Thompson is the automotive diagnostician and trainer and co-founder of Automotive Test Solutions in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's an expert at diagnostics and repair strategy and designs award-winning diagnostic tools and software for the automotive industry. And Automotive Test Solutions, Bernie Thompson. And he wrote this article. And I can tell you, it was such a good article, and I get these so many. Being in the business, trade, we're just deluged. Anyway, I gave this article to my technician. It says, read it, initial that you've read it, and return the book to me with your initials on it. And I happen to have that. So for you, so what is the good news? See, I have the same issue. I've got 65,000 miles almost on my Jag, and I have performed one induction system service. And let me tell you what happened when I did that.
Okay.
So I'm letting the engine idle. I'm using a nozzle that has a very slow flow rate, and we empty the contents of the chemical into the mouth of the engine. We had to snake the nozzle and the little flexible metal hose, which is the size of a number 2 or eighth of an inch hose, snake it between the rubber bellows for the air filter, because that's where the air mass sensor is located. So you can't just open it up because the engine won't run correctly with the air mass sensor disconnected, the air filter disconnected. The filter, and you can't put it in the filter because you don't want that chemical on the other side of the air mass sensor, because that would have an effect on the sensor, could damage the sensor. So you got to get in between, just like a hole in the cigarette. If you've ever smoked and had a hole in a cigarette, you can't draw. So you got to get into the bellows, and that's what we do, in front of the throttle plate. The problem was and is, and this happened 35,000 miles ago, is that when that mist hits the throttle plate, that certainly is not wide open because the engine would be running 6,000 RPM. The throttle plate is semi-closed. That mist fogs up on the door and falls down as droplets. You can't help but create liquid droplets and heavy fluid in the bottom of the manifold. And that happened on my car, but I was patient. It took 30 minutes to do this. I said, "Oh, we're good now." And it's sitting there idling, and I'm finished the procedure, but I'm letting it run now. So here's the mistake that I made. after about 30 minutes, or 15 minutes, seemed like 30 minutes, I assumed that all of the fluid was gone, but it wasn't. Some of the fluid had puddled and was in some of the lower regions of the manifold, which I didn't have off the car, so I don't know where they are. And your BMW has the same thing. And every person tuned in that has a late model engine, this applies to your car as well. So what I did, just Jeff, after I thought that it was all okay, you know, the technician closed the hood and he said, okay, it's time to go drive it. And I said, great. So I just I raced it up. Well, when I did, some of the liquid got into a cylinder.
Oh.
And when it did, it went pop, pop, pop. I'm almost hesitant to say it again. I didn't want to turn the engine off, but it had not detonation, but pre-ignition, which will destroy an engine.
Oh yeah.
And as a result, it had the most god-awful knocking in one or two of my cylinders, wherever that liquid happened to puddle up and ended up in the cylinder, and that stuff is flammable, but it has no octane, so it was pre-igniting before the spark plug, which destroys an engine. And I was concerned at 35,000 miles, in my eagerness to decarbon my engine, that I had damaged the engine. And I didn't want to cut it off, because if there's liquid in there and you cut it off and it puddles, you turn the key over, you bend a rod, because of hydraulics of the engine. Because I didn't, so I just let off the throttle, and it went sit there, and it went clock, 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 clock for I don't know, it seemed like probably 5 or 6 seconds. And then it burned out what was in there, and it was okay. That was the last time I did that to my car, and now I'm at 65,000 miles, and it's time to do it again. But you can believe that I will let that engine idle hot for no less than 45 minutes, so that whatever is puddled in the bottom of the intake manifold will vaporize and turn into a vapor, and then it won't have that possibility of flowing into the cylinder. So they're the real facts. This is really what happens in you know, and so we perform those services in our shop, but we do not perform them in numbers to direct injection gasoline engines, because we have a concern that, number one, it takes more time than what a car owner wants to give us. And you can, and if it's taking me 15 minutes to talk to you about this, how you going to how would you explain it to everybody? That's why and folks, for those of you who really aren't interested in this, that's just too bad, because this is a good opportunity to inform everyone that's got a GDI engine. And Jeff, to that end, Jan, who has been with me for 21 years, bought a new Kia. And, and then she had a free oil change, 3,500 miles. She takes it over to the Kia dealer. While she's there, she says, by the way, what do you do about GDI engines? The answer was nothing. Our local Kia dealers, we don't do those services. We don't recommend them. We don't do them. So what does that mean? Well, when the car gets to the point like your BMW is going to do, that it's got a problem, it'll be out of warranty anyway. So that sort of.
They don't care then.
Well, it's not that they don't care. It's just that people aren't going to come back to the dealer after the warranty is over with something that was building all the time. And it is now, you know what Ford did? On their,
yes, they were smart too. They
Ford,
put in port and direct, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. And you know what Lexus never did? Lexus always had port and direct.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so, and you and I both know, Jeff, you're a car guy. Ford Motor Company wouldn't go to the expense of adding an extra injector just to say, oh, it runs better or it gets better gas mileage. Not at all. And I'll tell you something else, what BMW has done, and I get so many people talking about ethanol and moisture and all that. That's another conversation we won't go into. But BMW adds water injection, which we did 35 years ago when we had leaded gasoline 40 years ago, to break up the gasoline, ethanol, and alcohol and water. We used to add an injection to the top of the air filter, and whenever you accelerated, the diaphragm would go down and it would inject alcohol. I put a lot of those on, and people that had these lead burning carbon buildup engines that would ping and knock like crazy because of the carbon buildup. See, the more carbon buildup you have in the chamber, the less room you have, so the higher compression. You take an engine, and you know this, you take an engine that's brand new, a racing engine with 12-to-1 compression ratio, and that's the limit. Like 12.01 or something is the NASCAR limit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
So if you build it with 12-to-1 and you race it 500 miles, at the end of the race, you're going to have more than 12-to-1 because it will be a layer of carbon on that piston. There'll be a layer in that engine, and that layer takes up room. So now you don't have 12-to-1, you got 12.2-to-1 or 12.012 or whatever. And so you multiply that by leaded gasoline of years ago, and you take a car that was made with 10-to-1, it would have 11.5-to-1 compression after 30,000 miles. And a Ford, the old Ford 390s, they'd build up so much carbon on the back of the intake valve with the carburetor that the carbon would hold the valve open and the engine would misfire and sit there and run roughly when what was wrong with it was the carbon buildup. Anyway, it's a heck of every internal combustion engine builds carbon because we burn gasoline.
Yeah, and it's only the directs that have the real problem. I know it's true, and the ports have some problems after a long time. But I really appreciate all your details, Bobby. I've got a very good understanding now. It's really the PVC valve. What about putting a filter in line with that PVC valve that takes some of that oil vapor? I don't know. I'll call that a fog too.
Okay, you should. Here's your takeaway. That's a good question. A filter, and I've got another minute before break coming up. So here's your takeaway. Okay. There are catch can devices on the market, and a catch can is a device where it takes the PCV vapors and puts them into a can and then routes that can back into the intake so that the can holds more of the vapors or some of the vapors that would reduce the effect of the problem we're talking about. The problem I have with catch cans and why I don't recommend them on air is because if people thought that that would fix their problem, everybody would go out and change the engineering of their car and cause more damage because they don't know what they're doing. Because people don't know what they're doing. I'll tell you about that when I come back. Good morning, Car Clinic listeners nationwide. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for over 47. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and the Torch Award for Ethics. And I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Bay. Here's how. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, look for the professional category, then click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. 3 simple steps. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, scroll to Professional Category, click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
More than 1 million wild animals are killed each year illegally. Poaching is a major threat to our country's wildlife. I'm Tom Barry. I'm an actor with a desire to preserve living space for wildlife. The Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust does just that. Works with private landowners to protect wildlife, to preserve natural habitats. To learn more or to work with the Humane Society Wildlife Land Trust, call 800-729-SAVE. That's 800-729-SAVE, or visit wildlifelandtrust.org. Thank you.
Did you know 26 million Americans have kidney disease and most don't know it?
The day I was diagnosed, I didn't know what to do. I called the National Kidney Foundation, and the young lady who answered stayed on the phone with me and walked me through step by step. She too was surviving kidney disease, and she showed me there could be life after kidney disease.
Visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org. Now you know.
Good morning, Car Clinic in Pensacola. I've been talking with you about your automobiles for over 25 years now, and I've been servicing vehicles here in my own automotive service shop for over 47. We've won Best Automotive Service Shop, Best Oil Change, and Best Reputation in Automotive Service, and the Torch Award for Ethics. And I'd be honored if you'd vote for my service shop again for Best of the Bay. Here's how. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, look for the professional category, then click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. 3 simple steps. Go to pnj.com, click on Best of the Bay, scroll to Professional Category, click on Bobby Likis Car Clinic for Best Automotive Service Shop and Best Oil Change. I'd appreciate your vote of confidence.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back. I hope that you're enjoying today's broadcast. We're actually talking a lot about carbon buildup in engines and the GDI, the gasoline direct injection, which simply put, all of the fuel that goes into the engine to be burned is injected directly into the engine cylinder like a diesel, and that increases horsepower. It allows, and Jeff is still with us from Texas, and Jeff, here's the neat thing about direct injection. When you inject liquid into the chamber, it has a cooling effect. And that cooling effect reduces the overall temperature of the chamber, which allows the manufacturer to increase the compression ratio ever so slightly so that you could get more power from that same cylinder and have a cooling effect so that it doesn't go beyond the threshold of temperature and cause detonation or emissions, which is nitrides of oxygen that are NOx that's created in the high temperature combustion process. So to better emphasize that, or to add to that, if you add 10% ethanol, which is an alcohol, and it's a cooler, like you put rubbing alcohol on your arm and it evaporates and it cools, that even adds to the cooling effect. So you can take a gasoline motor direct injection and run 11-to-1 compression ratio. You can take that same with the same timing controls and what have you, and then you can take that and add ethanol, and you can bump the compression up even higher, and you can run the advance up on the timing even faster, quicker, more, so that you get more power out of the same engine, more efficiency. In fact, Nissan came out this year with their engine that's adjustable compression ratio, has a turbocharger, has 8.5-to-1 up to 14.1-to-1. And so when you're cruising down the road, the turbo's not working because you're just barely on the throttle. You're cruising like a boat on a plane versus, imagine a boat where you're pulling skiers up out of the water. You got 5 skiers or 3 skiers back there. You got to nail the throttle, and you got to have that grunt. You got to have that torque to pull those skiers. But once you get them up on the water, you can back off the throttle. Well, you need the turbocharger to produce enough power to pull those skiers up on the water or to accelerate your car. But once you get up to the speed, you can back off the throttle. Well, when you do, you don't need the turbocharger, but you need an efficient engine. So to get more efficiency, you need to bump the compression ratio. See, the real bottom line is with all fuels and with all internal combustion engines, it is all a compromise. Under the cold, hot, load, no load, cruising, altitude, range, it ad nauseum. I mean, it's unbelievable. But anyway, do you have any questions of me before I let you go?
Just one. Well, just 2 little questions. One is, did you tell me about how much that service of fogging runs for an inline 6? I only do inline 6s. So just out of curiosity, rough.
I don't know, $200.
Okay, okay. And then the other question is, well, it's not a question actually. I use just to mention this guy Jason Finsky on YouTube. He's my usual person to go to for technical information.
He is great. He does a great job. Yeah, Jason does a fantastic job.
Jason
I do too.
And I'm going to tell you, he says none of the manufacturers will talk to him about this issue. None. Zero.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And to that end, we can go back to Ford Motor Company. And I'm not picking on Ford here because I was a Ford lover years ago. I ran Fords when everybody else ran Chevrolets. And I did that because in drag racing, because I used to tell my Chevrolet buddies, hey, anybody can make a Chevrolet run fast. It takes real talent to make a Ford go fast. and at that time, it was really true. Anyway, so I said all that to say this. As you and I have already mentioned, Ford didn't add an extra a set of injectors per cylinder because they wanted to do it. They added it because they knew that the engine would run better, longer, and have fewer emissions and performance. And also, Jeff, I'll tell you this that the manufacturers won't tell you. Every program for and fuel mapping and timing mapping and the PCM, the powertrain control module, is designed to maximize the catalytic converter's life because the catalytic converter is guaranteed by law 80,000 miles or 10 years. So when OEMs design a program and put that program in the computer, it is done so with the intent of making the engine run stoichiometric, or 14.7 parts of air to 1 part fuel, or 9,000 gallons of air to one gallon of fuel. That's how it works out, so that the catalytic converter will last 80,000 miles or 10 years. That's by law. It has to be covered. It is covered by law, regardless of all manufacturers. So the programs are built. That's why, and you hear me talking about super chips. Well, that's why super chips can very easily, and they do it, make their plug-and-play flash pack where you just plug it into the data port and reprogram the computer, because they're not relegated to make sure that the converter lasts 80,000 miles. Not that changing it would damage the converter, but the manufacturers are in their own little bubble. And I say their own little bubble, their own big bubble of laws and regulations and in mass. And you can't blame them, because whenever they have a problem, if they don't make a single mistake. They make a single mistake applied to 1 million cars, or you know how that drill goes. So so I'm not here to knock them. I have a great deal of admiration for OEMs, not necessarily the structure of the layer of management. That's and GM really suffered from that for years, and I guess Ford did too, and that's true for everything. Same thing that I was knocking Mercedes-Benz earlier for their lack of reasoning to design a smart car. So anyway, Jeff, I really enjoyed talking with you, and for all of you listeners, thank you for putting up with me and what have you, but I'm here to give you the real world. This is what goes on every day in service shops. You can't get this anywhere else. And you mentioned Jason, Jeff. I look at Jason. Jason did recently an overview on the McLaren traction control, and I'm sorry, on the McLaren sway bar control. And it was genius of McLaren how they designed so that when one part of the car wanted to lift, it caused fluid to transfer to a opposing and force the one that wanted to lift down. And it did that cross connect front and rear, left and right, simultaneously electronically connected. Unbelievably sophisticated, and Jason did a hell of a job explaining that. Anyway, hey, thank you so much.
Good.
Yeah, he does. He does great.
Thank you very much, Bobby. I love the conversation, sir.
And so do I. I appreciate you, and take care. Okay, I have a question here from our Watch Bobby Live. A K-Seal question from a Watch Bobby Live listener and viewer, Frank. So, Frank, listen, here's the question. A friend of mine used K-Seal in his 06 Ford Explorer, a 6-cylinder. He claims K-Seal plugged his radiator. Can this happen when using this product? And the answer is yes, but not because of the product. It can happen when you have an engine that has a coolant leak, an exhaust leak in the coolant, and that exhaust has vapors and crystallizes, not the K-Seal, but crystallizes additives in the cooling system. And those additives in the cooling system can find little resting places where they already were in the radiator. So K-Seal, in fact, K-Seal is the only approved to the ASTM D3147. It's the only standard for coolant stop leak products. So you say, can it happen? Yes. But is it because of K-Seal? No. I would put K-Seal in my brand new Jag if I had a pinpoint leak versus repairing the leak if I were out on the road. Now, if I had an older car, I would guarantee you that I would put K-Seal in the vehicle versus spending $5,000 to put an engine in the car that's worth $2,500. That doesn't make sense. But just for your friend to know, Frank, here's the reason his radiator's clogged up, if it is. It's because that car's been driven so long without any service and so long with old coolant that coagulated, and the pH factor either got very high, which attacks the aluminum, or very low, which oxidizes the cast iron. So I've just never seen a car that was over-maintained that had these kind of issues. In fact, I've never seen a car that was over-maintained, or at least over-maintained. What does that mean? It means following the guidelines. That's over-maintained because nobody does that. I say nobody. Yours truly does, and our customers do if we educate them, if they'll take the time to listen. But it's like everything else. You don't really care about transmissions or power steerings or radiators until you got a problem with yours. So follow the guidelines, change the fluids of a vehicle, the lifebloods, bumper to bumper, maximum every 50,000 miles, and you won't have those kind of problems. And if you do, it's because a part wore out and you replace the part. When we put a water pump on a car, we automatically include in the estimate, and this is where you call around getting at, what do you charge to put a water pump on? Well, and so the estimate comes back and it's $118 more than what somebody else did. Why? Because we perform a cooling system service at the same time, because we would not subject a new water pump to the old coolant or what was left of the old coolant in the vehicle. Why? Not because we're trying to sell service, but because we want our product to last. We're here for the long haul. We're not here to patch. So just know that. Know that when you're calling around asking for prices, what's the timing belt on my car? Well, that's a loaded question. If you drive a Lexus, it's the belt, the tensioner, and a water pump. If you got a Honda, you better do that at 90,000 to 105,000 miles, or you're going to have a valve that's going to break, or a timing belt. With Lexus, it's the same thing, 90 to 105,000 miles, but a Lexus won't bend the valve. But I've yet to see a Lexus that was 10 years old, listen to this, with even as low as 50,000 miles and 10 years old that didn't have a leaking water pump or passageways or ports behind that timing cover that you can't see. And when you get the cover off to replace the belt, the water pump comes with it. You can see all this coagulation. Looks like you were down in underground in a cave where that antifreeze runs out and then it coagulates and it turns yellow or green or it oxidizes. You should just sometime visit a shop and say, show me what goes on the operating table. We do that. We do that with Pinterest and with pins on our Pinterest. Go to BobbyLikis.com. Go to Pinterest.com/BobbyLikis and look in the shop at our in the shop board, and you will find many operations that we share with you. Anyway, I want to take a call from New York, and then I want to come back and share with you a release just out from our partners at the Car Care Council. It's a video about TPMS. What's TPMS? Tire Pressure Monitoring System. But first, Carol in New York. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Oh, good morning. Gosh, I have so many things to talk about that you talked about this morning.
I know.
I'm going to talk real fast.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're talking about carbon, you know what popped into my head? The commercials that were on black and white TV for Blackie Carbon and Bardol. Whatever happened to Bardol?
Well, here was that's historic, and that's a great question. Bardol was like what's the other one I can't think of? Marvel Mystery Oil, where you add oil to the top of the engine to break up lubricate the valves. Remember, that's what you're talking about.
Oh, is that what it was for? Because I know that it was a black and white. It was before color TV.
Yeah, right.
You know?
But see, that was also to dissolve the carbon. But here's a problem with that. No oil should be in the combustion chamber. Boy, this is so relevant to today. You can't imagine, Carol. I'll try to do this.
But that's why I
okay.
when I.
All right. Here's the bottom line. Zero oil needs to be and should be in a combustion chamber in the combustion process because it will reduce the octane and it will cause pre-ignition and or detonation, or pre-ignition or detonation. Pinging is detonation, and pre-ignition is the kiss of death. Pinging is okay. But here's the bottom line. So a lot of people still think, well, pour some oil in there. Well, if you've got an issue and if you let the car sit for 24 hours, I mean, I've used automatic transmission fluid for years. If you're going to take the head off of an engine for a valve job, you would pour automatic transmission. We would pour automatic transmission in the engine. This has been 25 years ago, and then let it smoke, and then shut it down. Now you've got a lot of condensed transmission fluid in there. And that would dissolve the carbon, take the heads off, and then by the time you get ready to put it back together, you could take a rag and wipe the carbon off because it would dissolve it. Folks, that's all the time I have. I want to share with you, the Car Care Council has released an informative video that explains the nature of the TPMS, the tire pressure monitoring system found on all the newer cars, and why you should not ignore the light when it comes on. According to Rich White, the executive director of the Car Care Council, and I'm quoting, driving on underinflated tires can damage a vehicle and potentially cause an accident. Low tire pressure also leads to lower gas mileage. The Car Care Council's video about the TPMS system explains the meaning of the symbol on your dashboard and its importance to vehicle safety. End quote. Folks, the video discusses the importance. Go there, carcare.org, and check out the new video on tire pressure monitoring systems. You'll be glad that you did. And tune in next Saturday for Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I'm Bobby Likis. Likis, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Insurance 101, courtesy of Grundy Insurance. Folks, there are a number of things to consider when choosing insurance for your collector car. Agreed value policies are set up front and do not depreciate the car's value over time, whereas actual cash value policies do not establish the value in advance. Some insurance companies enforce mileage limits and restrict how you actually use your collector car. And some insurance companies will only provide coverage for unmodified originals. Learn more about what to look for at the Insurance 101 section at Grundy.com. Motorrad, a longtime OE supplier, is a leader in automotive thermostats, caps, and engine management products. Motorrad's manufacturing facilities feature state-of-the-art equipment with strict quality control and functional testing, ensuring high-quality, long-lasting products. Motorrad delivers world-class product development for its advanced thermal and engine management programs, providing parts, accessories, and kits needed to do the job right the first time, every time. Motorrad provides parts for virtually any vehicle and engine on or off the road. Motorrad, leading the way in coverage and service.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Rosie Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here. Your aroma helps me wake up.